Hello, 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 Oscar.
Oh,
If you don't recognize this bearded man, this handsome, rugged woodsman that I'm talking to, this guy's name is Oscar Meerman. And today we are going to be having really a conversation about the body and the mind and all of that sort of thing. And I'm going to be having a series of conversations with some people that I really respect and just have some good conversations with, in our own private time. And I just love to share some of those insights for those of you who are watching. So the theme of today, and each time we do, it's going to have just a very simple theme. We're going to keep it nice and short and succinct. So the theme of today that we were talking about just before was evolution. Oscar is a very evolutionary man from where he's come from. So I might just pass it over to you, man, and let you just do a bit of a brief intro as to who you are and all that stuff. And then we'll go into just flowing with it.
sure. So very briefly, I've studied exercise and sports science and osteopathy at university. And at the same time, I've been training competitive weightlifting, CrossFit, and martial arts. And so it's kind of an approach from two different directions with physical health, from the theoretical side and also the practical side. So I've come from that, and I've kind of blended it into an umbrella of movement, which is everything, I guess. It's as holistic as possible. So evolutionary wise, I'm continuing to distill what are the movement principles. So what's common between every movement discipline, whether it is weightlifting, martial arts, gymnastics, capoeira, whatever it is, or even physical therapy. What are the common movement principles that are the same across every human being?
So really kind of getting back to that essence as to, like we were talking about before, where did we come from? What is it to be a human? I think that's a really pertinent question these days that, I'm definitely exploring in my practices, and from all of our chats you're exploring, and there's some really influential people that I've been talking with who are exploring the same things. And so what's kind of, what are you noticing in your world and your research and practices at the moment? What's been coming up?
In my research, I'm really researching the principles of movement. So for example, the center of mass of a body. Instead of training balance, how can you train your awareness of where your center of mass is? And then can you control that center of mass with varying support points? So whether you are on your hands upside down, doing a handstand, whether you are airborne doing a backflip, you still have to control your center of mass, even if you're hanging from a pull-up bar. So if you train this center of mass principle, you suddenly don't need to train balance techniques, because you have the foundation of balance trained. So by training a principle, you get access to everything that it involves, be it handstands, acrobatics, hanging, even like planches and levers and strength, gymnastic strength work is understood better. Even Olympic weightlifting and barbell stuff is understood better if you understand the principle of center of mass.
I really love what you're saying. For me, that principle kind of came out in quite a while just spent standing in standing meditation practices. And the big question I often ask is, what is the difference between my subjective perception of center and the objective reality of center in just that simple task of standing? But I love what you're talking about, applying that to all movements, no matter what you're doing. And,
yes.
And that's what we can spend our whole life on that practice, which I really love. That's it's a goal worth pursuing. If you can never necessarily fully attain it, you're always growing and learning and evolving. Yeah. So go.
It's they're the best goals to have, because if you can never actually achieve the goal, then the actual objective becomes the journey. If you have an achievable goal, there's always the choice to enjoy the journey or the destination. But if you can never get there, then there's no choice. You have to enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
It's a much better teaching tool.
Like an ever growing marker in the sand. It's sort of like the rainbow goal.
Yes. Yeah.
It's always beautiful and it's worth pursuing, but it always just gets away from you a little bit, but that pushes you into realms that you may not have realized that you're going to in the first place. So to make this practical for people that are watching, let's say, well, maybe if you profile like a typical person that you'd work with, and like, let's just maybe workshop that. How would we go and apply that principle to maybe a said scenario? I'm putting you on the spot, I know.
Okay, so, well, first of all, it has to be specific to either what they want or what they need. Otherwise, it's very hard for the person to understand it because there's no context. So easy because everyone wants a handstand these days. Most of the time I'm dealing with a hand balancer. Or maybe it's an elderly person that just doesn't want to fall over. So that's probably a better example. We'll go with that.
Yeah, I love that example.
So we take this elderly person and we put them in a position where balance is challenged. So we put them on one leg, right? It's obviously harder to balance. And then I slowly ask them to not perform any balance skills, but to manipulate their center of mass. So take one leg out and then take the opposite leg out. Take the opposite arm out. Hinge forward at the hip, hinge back, get down low, stand up high, and start manipulating very basic directions that will change the center of mass and give them a very broad appreciation of where their body is in space. And then you just layer that complexity to a simple forward roll on the ground. You can apply that same principle. And you just keep layering it until they're doing a one-legged jump off a high platform into a dive roll. So
you finish with a double backflip.
Yeah, for sure. But as long as they're learning it from the perspective of that center of mass principle, and they're not getting tied down to any specific technique.
Yeah.
Technique is just an expression of this thing that they understand already.
Yeah. The thing I really love about that is, and why it's so important for people today, in my perceptions, is because we can really get tied to the best exercise, the best movement, and, like blah, blah, blah. But just that one thing can be applied to so many other different movements. And so there's some great power there. So,
and the other interesting thing is people who say that they train movement. So many people say that they train movement or say that they train health, but then they just train different specialties. So they jump on the rings and they're a ring specialist for a day. Then they're an Olympic lifting specialist. Then they're a hand balancing specialist. Then they're a contortion specialist. There's no glue between them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of the time no application of their skills. So yeah, are you specializing in different things, or are you addressing the basic layer of movement and health? And that basic layer of movement and health should be able to seamlessly grow roots into the specialist layer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of.
Skills as a mover can translate to any specialty.
Yeah, it might be. What I'm getting from that is it's about adaptability, and which definitely, if we look from an evolutionary perspective, that's kind of how we're able to be having this conversation on a computer. Is over many eons we adapted to the environment, and I suppose for me to take the essence out of what you're saying is that we need to look to create a more broad adaptation within the body that we can apply to other things. So if you go to the rings, if you go to martial arts, if you go to weightlifting, if you go to CrossFit or a sport or something like that, it's something that you take within you a skill, that principle, into all of those disciplines. Is that kind of my understanding correct out of that?
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. As Ito says, it's a master key.
Yes.
Rather than having all of these different keys.
The skeleton key. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. And I suppose, I really take a lot of inspiration from babies and just observing their development for their bodies, both from their own instinctual perspective, but then also how they're influenced by the environment around them, whether that be observing the movement patterns of the adults or just simply, are they crawling on the dirt or a wooden deck or something like that, and just observing how their bodies adapt and how we learn those patterns, and then we can forget them later in life as we learn different patterns. And yeah, so is there anything you'd like to add to that principle? So it's called an evolutionary principle, so to speak.
Well, yeah, we're basically adaptation machines. The human body is crazy good at getting better at whatever it's exposed to, providing the conditions are right to recover and adapt. So like you're saying with a baby, you put a baby on a hardwood floor, it'll get better at crawling on it. It just will. It has to. You take a injured person, you expose them to some rehab processes that are good, and they will recover their injury, hopefully. You put a heavy bar on someone's back, they get stronger. All of these things, they're just examples of adaptation. So yeah, that definitely sits at the heart of what movement is, this adaptation and adaptability principle. It's very huge and very important, and kids are amazing at it. They adapt so quickly. It's incredible. They're a huge inspiration.
I think that brings a really good question about, what is it that we choose to adapt to? And are we able to discern, what's for each of, because we're all individuals, each of our own highest good. And how might you tackle something like that?
Yeah, well, the first thing to understand is that your body will get better at whatever you expose it to. So the second thing to understand is, what do you want to get better at? Which is a huge question in itself. And then when you know where you want to go and what you want to adapt to, then you need to find a process in order to get the most out of that. Because let's say, we use the gymnastics rings hanging in the background. Maybe you want a full front and back lever on the gymnastics rings. You can't just jump on there and, well, you might be able to, but very few people will be able to just jump on the rings and adapt all their way into a front lever. They will probably need some process behind that. So step one with that is find a teacher and find a process. Someone like yourself.
And yourself. They can jump right in the middle. I can see a green line in between us, and I'm sure there's some sort of alchemical process that will happen.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So, you get better at whatever you expose yourself to. So expose yourself to the fun things and the things that you want to get good at, and do it in a way that is intelligent and is directed.
Excellent. Excellent. Beautiful. So to sum up all of that, I'm just going to do a bit of a recap so I understand, and hopefully it makes sense to people as I'm understanding it. So first principle, just one thing that people can take away is start to explore and be able to perceive your center of mass in any given moment or any given movement.
Yes.
And then look to apply that in the thing that you would like to do, the things that really you enjoy, whether that's a front lever on the gymnastic rings, or whether that's going to squat heavy, or whether that's in some sort of martial arts rivalry or anything like that. Apply that principle and just notice how your body responds. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Definitely. There's that kind of exploratory approach. And then there is a guided approach.
Yes.
That leads you.
Yes.
And there is also an investigative approach, which I think is a bit different than exploration.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day. Yeah.
So for me, exploration has got no direction to it. You kind of are very romantic, like you were saying before at the start, whereas investigation implies a vector or a direction or a clear objective, something that you're trying to get out of. So I think having a clear mindset with how you go about these things is very important. Are you investigating, or are you exploring and just purely enjoying the process, or are you being led?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think the way I like to combine them is, being clear on the intent and then exploring around the intent. And, what you're talking about is investigating deep into it, which I really love as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excellent.
Figure out what you want to adapt to.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think is really useful for those who are listening as well, because, we have this body and we can often look around outside of ourselves, and it can be a very useful pursuit. Just even if you take an hour a day, if that's all you got, or maybe you just choose to look into it all the time, investigate, explore, have clear intent to understand the vessel that you're in day-to-day life, whether when you're sitting down talking on the computer, or whether you're going for a walk, whether you're physically training and building adaptation, all of that sort of thing, bringing those principles. So I think there's some really powerful stuff that people can take away straight away. So maybe we'll keep it succinct and wrap it up there, but I'd love to let people know how they can get in touch with Jesus/Oscar.
Are we going to get in trouble for that?
Hey, I'm sorry if I've offended anyone from religious circles.
Jesus.
Pardon? Jesus, yes. Yes.
Yes, get in contact. The main contact point is the Facebook page. So Oscar Meerman, OscarMeerman. And then from there, you can find my website, my email, my professional page, and all of the events that are going on right now. There's a lot of stuff. It's exciting. It's growing.
Yeah, and I'll pop some links down below so people can access that easy as well. And you've got some really cool movement classes coming up would you like to just maybe share a bit more about that as we wrap up?
So I'm running classes in this movement approach that I'm developing out of CrossFit Balaclava. We've also got an all-day workshop this Sunday on very detailed approach to movement. We've never done it before, so it's exciting.
Awesome.
A few people coming, and it'll be an amazing day.
Beautiful, man. So if you are in the Melbourne area this Sunday, what date?
27th.
Sunday the 28th of February 2016, just in case you're watching this in the year 3000. You missed out. I'm sorry. Oscar will probably have another one, but excellent. Well, hey, thanks heaps, man. And I'd love to have another chat with you soon, and we'll just talk about, another really kind of simple or complex principle about the body so people can have more fun and enjoy living in it a little bit more. So thanks heaps for sharing your experiences and the things that you've learned, and I look forward to chatting with you more, man.
Cool. Thank you, Benny. I appreciate it. Enjoy.
Awesome, man.